Hey, this is James with CodeWP, and this is the first PromptEDU video of many more to come. PromptEDU is where I'm going to walk through the best ways to prompt CodeWP and other generative AI platforms to get to an output. So this is a real-time video where we're essentially going to choose a theme for the video. In this video, I want to create shortcodes that pull in data from third-party APIs. And we're going to think about problems and then how to solve them with a well-structured prompt in CodeWP. And this will give you a good understanding of my thought process on how to create generations. There are a lot of different ways to do this. I'm not saying this is the best way to do it, but this is what I typically do, and I've been working with AI for several years now, and I've learned along the way kind of how best to structure these different things. So today's theme is creating shortcodes, pulling in third-party data. You can see that I'm using our Firefox plugin. There's also a Chrome plugin or extension that will give me the CodeWP instance in my browser. I can also just use the general application, but I like having things side by side because I can have my testing environment here. Note, I'm not testing on a production website. I am testing on a InstaWP staging site. Super important. Never test these on production sites. Always test on a development site first. And I'm also using Code Snippets, which is a free plugin to run WordPress code. You'll actually notice that I have some additional things here because I have the pro version, but the free version gives you access to this functions PHP, which is exactly what we need. So without any further ado, let's get into it. I've looked up a bunch of free APIs that don't need API keys. And why this is good is because I don't need to go sign up for something. Great for my demos. And great to kind of test out the power of CodeWP if given the right prompts. So the first thing, I'm going to just look through these and find a good API to play with. And let's do crypto data. And I'm going to click into this and it'll give me, and I'm in Firefox Developer Edition, so I kind of get all of the JSON formatting. And it'll give me, if I hit this endpoint, it'll give me this data. And this is actually great because it shows the price, the real-time price of this currency. And I'm not really very well, I don't really know that much about crypto, so we're going to kind of have to learn as we go. But this should give me a price of whatever this is. And BTC, I'm assuming, is Bitcoin, but I'm not sure what that second one is, but we'll give it a go. So I want a real-time price, and I'll see that the last price is whatever this is. And I will want in my shortcode to either select the price or the volume. And also maybe the change rate. So let's do it. Let's go into our prompt. I'm using WordPress general mode, and I'm going to just think through this. Crypto data. I want to display the change, current price, and volume of my symbol that I input into the shortcode. So first I'm going to say shortcode, and this specifies to the AI that we want to create a shortcode instead of a function or anything like that. I could say function and then it would give me something like this, but I also want the shortcode. Shortcode to display the following information about a crypto. And I'm saying crypto ticker because I want to be specific, and it'll understand crypto ticker, but if I say crypto, it's going to be like, what do you want? Do you want me to pass in the number? Do you want me to pass in the word Bitcoin? Do you want me to pass in some other identifier? So I think crypto ticker is good enough to kind of specify that I want this specific thing. The following information about a crypto ticker, and I'll give it a list. And I'm going to say volume. And I'm going to do buy because that's probably the most relevant price that people should see. So volume buy and change rate. Volume buy and change rate. Volume buy and change rate. And I'm going to input this like so instead of kind of copying and pasting the API stuff, because I want you to see how I typically do things. And I'm going to typically do things in natural language and then work to offer the context that the platform needs to do that. So in this situation, I'm going to just give it context. I'm going to say context. And I'm actually going to say use this and context. Actually, the response for this is, and I'm going to just copy and paste the response verbatim. And because I'm on the free plan, I get access to unlimited input. And at some point, it'll stop understanding the input. But I'm going to keep in volume. We want that. And I'm going to just get rid of stuff that doesn't really help the AI understand things. But I'll keep this, and then within the data, I'm actually going to go and get raw data instead, because it didn't copy the formatting, so it won't understand the format of this information. So if I pasted it in the other way, it wouldn't understand that nested within data is the time and the symbol and all that. So I'm going to just look through and say, I'm actually just going to paste it in like this. If it's longer, I would cut it out so it only kind of follows the structure of that API. In this situation, I don't think it really matters. So again, just thinking back through it, shortcode to display the following information about a crypto ticker. That's pretty easy to understand. The one thing I didn't specify is that the user should input the crypto ticker, which it kind of inferred. But if you really wanted to be explicit, you could say the shortcode attribute is symbol. But it kind of pulled that from this demo context, which is why it's helpful to offer context in many situations, especially if you're using other plugins or other platforms. Here's the data output, or here's the code snippet previous that I want to integrate with. So that's kind of how I would do it. And let's just copy and paste it into here for better visibility, and then I'll talk through the actual generation here. So this looks perfect, actually. This looks very perfect. The output's gonna be everything, actually. So it's not perfect. I want to specify which to display. So I'm gonna go back and change this. I'm gonna say user specifies the ticker, and in a second a CSV or comma separated list of the properties to show of the i.e. So again, I give it more context. I say I want to specify the ticker. I want to be able to say that, and that was inferred in this previous generation, but I also want to say show me the volume or show me the buy, and then have it show that, and then I also display in the order, display as a list in the order inputted. And this might not be inputted. I don't know how to spell. Two T's. So I want it to display in a list of volume then buy, but if I say buy first, then I want it to display as buy and then volume as a HTML. And I'm actually going to make it even more complex. I'm going to say include basic classes for styling and submit that. And I'm using keyboard shortcuts to open and close. So Command P to open, Command Enter to close. And this is going to very likely give us what we want. So I'm going to blindly copy and paste it in, and then walk through it and see if it'll work. We'll continue. All right, so this code looks like it is what we want. We enter the ticker, we enter the properties as a list like so, and it should work pretty well in that it'll explode it into the properties And we're going to have to specify, we can't say volume as just like, or change rate with a space. We're going to have to specify and match the formatting of this API, which is fine because there's no need. And then it looks like everything else is right. For each one specified here, it'll pull it in, get the property. This isn't like a complex API, so there aren't like multiple nested properties in here. It'll output it as a list, and the list has a class name that I can then use to go and create CSV or CSS with. And I'm actually going to open it and create the CSS and show you how that works. So I hope this first example was pretty helpful, and this is my real-time thinking when I'm creating something. It obviously goes quicker because I'm not speaking it out loud, but I see something and I'm like, oh, this is good, but I want something else, and I just keep the prompt in here and I just add. I want to show the volume by, I want to include a class, I want to do XYZ, and I just continuously add to the prompt, which is why the pro mode is awesome, because it allows me to just continually prompt and iterate and make hundreds of different versions of something when it's complex like that. And this isn't really a complex example, but you can kind of see how it could be helpful in the future. I'm going to generate CSS by going into the snippet and clicking this. It should pick up that it's a list and it's pulling in this. And I'm going to take a look at the sub snippets. Cool. That'll do. And I'm going to use the pro version here. The pro version, and I'm going to say styles, make it front end, and I'm just going to, that'll apply now to our shortcode too, and that's just a little sidebar away from the generation. So both are activated. My shortcode is this, my properties are this. Let's go and make a new page and test it out. And I'm going to just use like the standard Gutenberg block for shortcode. Throw in the shortcode here. There is properties and ticker are already set, so I don't really have to add them unless I want to display something other than this symbol. And I don't really know what other symbols there are. Again, I'm not a big crypto person. Let's take a look though and see what type of cryptos are there. Ethereum, maybe I can just do ETH. And I'm gonna assume that this structure is probably the same, but we'll see. So first, let's take a look at the shortcode and make sure it does what we want it to do. Not adding a new page, I'm viewing the page. Cool, this does exactly what we want it to do, except for the volume, because I believe the information is right, but I believe that the volume is VOL instead of volume. So I got to change that. And that's sometimes something that can happen when creating these things. It really understands the concept, but the actual placeholders are sometimes just small issues that it kind of messes up on a little bit. There you go. It'll give us the volume by change rate. And then let's say ticker of ETH and see if that works. Well, I guess ETH did not work. This might be a swap price because there are two different things here. So let's go back to here and try to get to work real quick. If it doesn't work, I'm moving on because, yeah, this is a spot trade. So I'm sure it's a arbitrage type thing, but again, not really my forte. I'm going to actually just say, let's do ETH. This is a cool platform. ETH to USDT, which I believe now is probably US Tether, but don't quote me on that. Okay. So now let's see. Yeah, okay. So there you go. All right, that's the first one. I'm going to do one more because this is actually a bit longer than I expected to go with this video. Let's do one more. let's do two APIs in one. Nationalize and genderize. So these two things will return this information. And I'm going to first add a first name in here. It's already in. Okay, let's do this. Shortcode to display the predicted gender and nationality from the user's first, if not from the current users. If it's not set, I want to display if not set. And I'll let the AI kind of figure out what the error should be based on the context of this, but from the current user's first name, if set. And punctuation actually helps here, surprisingly. Shortcode to display the predicted gender and nationality from the current user's first name if set. If not set, display an error. We'll also add arguments to 1. So I'm going to do a list here. Lists are also pretty helpful. And 2, toggle the gender and nationality visibility. So we'll see. I'm going to let it kind of figure out that argument. Add arguments to 1 over all right, so the first argument I want is if my name is James but I enter Mark, I want to manually override. So it might understand that, it might not. For number 2, I want to toggle the gender and nationality visibility. So I want maybe both to show or only one to show. And I'm going to remove the error because I can override things. Okay, now we need to add the APIs. So here is our example. I'm going to just paste in these. And first, I'm going to hit enter. And I'm going to hit enter and see if these APIs are popular enough for our AI to have background knowledge on. So the AI is not trained on anything really but WordPress, but it leverages large language models, which are trained off around 47 terabytes of data online. And what that means is it may have a good understanding of what these APIs do inherently without having training. And it actually looks like this is accurate. I'm going to paste it into the other section for better visibility, but we'll go back here and take a look at the actual structure. And it's looking at gender data, so we're getting the data, and the first thing is gender. Let's see. Yup, that's right. And then nationalized data is a little more complex, where it says country, and then it gives an array of different countries and the probability. So we just want the most probable country, which is AT, which I am sad to say that I don't know what AT stands for. But it should work because it'll pull in number 1, country 1, ID 1. All right, let's take a look. And again, it knows this without me providing context. And for many popular APIs, it will already know this, and you can kind of save time by not entering it. But if it didn't know this, I would just go in and say, let's get the raw JSON, and I'm going to copy this, and then I'm going to copy up to here, because this is basically as deep as it'll go. And then I'll just add in like etc. And it would know like, oh, here's the beginning of the structure. All I have to do is pull in country number 1. And then for this, I could probably just leave it as is and say we're going to get gender from the response. But offering more context, again, makes it pretty helpful. This looks like it should work. It's going to pull in user meta, get the first name. So it'll be by default James. You can see that I can set the gender or nationality on and off. So if I say false or anything but true, then it won't show up. And Cool. I'm going to take nationality. And thinking out loud, let's make this a lot more complex. Let's say cache the result for 1 week. So I enter the name, it gets back information from the name. Let's cache that result for 1 week. Cache the result for 1 week. I also want it to be clear if the current user updates. So let's think this through. I want to cache the result for 1 week. So if I pass through Michael, it should be stored as a WordPress cache or a transient. And then I also want to clear the cache if the current user updates their name, which honestly won't make any impact. So I'm going to delete that, because if the current user clears their name, they're going to just add a new name. It'll call in the new name, check to see if there's a cached name for that, and then go from there. So I'm gonna just keep it like this, and that'll make it even more complex. But it should work, because again, it's trained on WordPress and it really understands how the platform works. So it's just gonna take what we already know is to be right, or what I'm assuming to be right, and just add in that layer of caching. And it's not a real cache, it's a transient. So this transient says we're gonna take the name, we're gonna hash it, MD5 hash it. If the name exists, pull it in. If it doesn't exist, then we go get it, and then we also set the cache for it. And it's going to cache not everything at once. It's going to cache the nationality and gender for that specific name in different records. And I'm fine with that, but I can show you, hopefully I didn't just lose it. I can show you, cache the result for 1 week, 1 for gender, so I'm going to do 1 transient record for the gender and name, and I want them to be comma separated, and I spelled separated wrong, but it doesn't usually care about spelling errors for the comma separated name and transient. So it's going to store it in the same thing and then add additional code to kind of blow it up, and then get that from what's being stored in there, if it exists, I believe. Oh no, it's not. It's gonna do it under 2 keys. I don't want that. Cache the result for 1 week. 1 row for both. All right, that is a little more specific, where I want 1 row for both, and that will probably make it think through. Instead of creating 2 different keys, let's make 1. And it's still making 2 keys, which is the right choice, but I don't want it to make 2 keys. I want it to make 1 key. 1 transient row for both the gender and name, comma separated. If row get the name and the name, gender, and the nationality. So I wasn't thinking through right there. So the nationality, and I'll give it the additional context. So it's going to be gender and nationality. So James, and I'm gonna format it like this and see what happens. James, the name pipe will be gender, nationality, male. I don't know what nationality is going to be. I also want to convert the country ID. Convert country ID to the country. I don't know how it's going to handle that one, but let's see what happens. Because in this instance, it's going to be proper, and it's going to return our cache data. It's going to get it if it doesn't exist, and it's going to return the country ID, but it's going to say US, and I want it to say United States, or I want it to say whatever nationality it thinks I am. Let's see what nationality it thinks I am. I don't know what KE is, but it's not what I am. KE. Yeah, I'm definitely not Kenyan, but it thinks I'm Kenyan, so I'll keep it keep it like so. I don't believe that that little API is quite right. All right, so this is interesting. It's kind of just listing out every country under the sun and giving it that conversion. Something that you can see here is I'm using WooCommerce on this site. So let's think through and say, use WooCommerce function for this. And I don't know 100% that WooCommerce has a function for this, but I'm 99% sure, because when you enter a country code or a country name on the checkout, it has to convert between the two. So I'm assuming there's already a record of this in one of the WooCommerce files. Why not use it if WooCommerce is already installed? And I'll just say, use the WooCommerce function for this, and it finds that I'm using WooCommerce in the name and says, do you want to use WooCommerce? And not really, because I'm not creating something for that plugin specifically. But let's take a look. And there you go. I think this will probably work in the way we want it to. And you can see we're getting pretty complex with these generations. But I'm going to just paste it in and see what happens. So it should take my name, and based on the response from that API, it should say that I'm Kenyan, and we'll find out if that's accurate or not. All right, user, gender, nationality. And again, it's going to preset my name as the current user's first name, which is what we want, and it's also going to preset both to be returned, and it's going to return both with no real formatting other than a line break between the two, which is basically what we want. And our publishing failed, which means there may be a syntax error within the code itself. So let's see what's going on there. So if this saves, we know that the shortcode is causing the issue. And my thought is that probably this little thing right here may not exist, or it may not properly be called. So WooCommerce might not have already loaded, which means that if it hasn't already loaded and it's calling this function, it's calling it a function that doesn't exist yet. So I'm actually going to go in, and this is a good way to show you, number one, why it's important to test things, but number two, my personal way to debug very quickly. So I use this little, okay, this is helpful. I use this little tool called Debug Log Manager. It gives me a front-end view of my debug log, so I don't have to jump into anything on the back end. And it'll show me here on line 28. So line 28 is empty, so that's not accurate. But here within code snippets, within here, I cannot use an object of a type as a standard. I can't use an object as an array. So it's getting our formatting wrong, which means that it doesn't even though it looks pretty, it doesn't accurately understand the responses from these codes. So we're going to do something that was mentioned a little bit earlier, and just take the raw data and give it enough context so it knows that it's going to kind of continue the structure here, and just ... or etc, and paste in the context. So response is that. And then here, the response is, jump into here, raw data. This is pretty simple. And I'm going to just make it so it doesn't get scared and add in the Michael name. And now it has accurate context to understand the structure of what's going on. And I'm assuming what's happening based on looking at that debug log is that one of these things right here, this one right here, this is actually close enough to 28, so 27, it's probably the plugin itself. But this right here is not accurately formatted, I'm assuming. So I'm going to just take this, paste it in, and now that it has the context, I'm assuming that it should work fine. And we are not activated, are we? Or it might have changed. Yeah, it changed our name on us. And that's what happens if I don't specify I want that shortcode and I change the input parameters. The AI reacts a lot differently, and there's no context to your previous generations in this situation. So there you go. Here, this is working fine. I'm not Kenyan, but it's converting, as you can kind of see here, it's converting this code of KE to Kenya using WooCommerce because it's already installed. Why not? And I'm also going to say return the name as well. Return the name as well. I'm going to put that at the bottom here. Return the name as well. And make caps case. All right, now it's going to be pretty and also return my name. And then I'm going to change the name and we're going to see if it works or not. But also I just want to jump back into our if the row exists, get it like this. Let's see if it did what we were talking about. So nationality, gender. This is setting the transient, and then it's also looking for this, and if it doesn't exist, it'll run through the whole platform, or process, I should say. And I want to see what's responded here. So it's just responding in a array, and it's just throwing that into the transient, which is essentially what we want. And you'll see here, it actually gave us a really cool output of now it's formatted with CSS classes ready to go. And I'm going to just add that, and I'm going to open this in a new tab, Command Open or Command O, and I'll do the same thing that we did for the first snippet, where we just go ahead and click Create, Generate CSS. As that generates, let's take a look at this on the front end. Should be the same shortcode anyway. It's not. Yeah, I believe that will work. And I'm going to just save this and change my name and see how it reacts. So yeah, this is the last working one. I'm going to change my name to Jenna. Now it thinks, there we go, female in Finland. Don't know about that, but, or the Finland aspect of it, but it shows that it's working. So I'll keep it at this. I think this video went a lot longer than expected. I hope that this gave you some good insights into the prompting side of creating generations. This is really helpful for CodeWP, but it's also very helpful for pretty much any generative AI using large language models. They all work the same way, and in essence, the better the prompt that you have, the more accurate your generation is going to be. The more specific you can be, the better. And iterating on prompts is probably the best way to do this. You think through it logically, you find the basic steps and the basic features and elements you want, and then with each generation you're like, oh, but I could use this, or oh, I could do it this way, it would be better this way, or I want this additional feature. And I think me talking about this in real time should hopefully show you at least my thought process that goes on when I'm creating these generations. And I'm obviously doing it a lot faster and just generating and generating and generating, but I'm following the same process of iterate, test, iterate, test, iterate, test. Find some other idea, for example, that WooCommerce country conversion idea, iterate, test, and just go on until I get the perfect snippet. And in the real world practice, this is a lot quicker, And for me, it really fits into the workflow because we don't have to push it off to a developer. We don't have to go through Stack Overflow and then find the right one and then create our own code. It's just testing, and it takes around maybe 5 minutes to get the perfect generation. For very complex things like the WordPress WooCommerce shipping class that replaces an entire plugin, that takes a lot longer. That takes 20 minutes maybe, but it's a lot better than paying for something that you don't really need, or paying somebody else for something that our platform can create. So hopefully that was helpful. Let me know in the comments what other PromptEDU you would like. In the next video, we're going to take a look at WooCommerce and just thinking through the general thought process of creating WooCommerce features there. And